Hey everybody, this is Jason Ostrowski, and welcome to another edition of the Everything Real Estate Podcast. If you're an avid listener of the podcast, then you know we've been off for the past couple weeks. Took some time off to celebrate Thanksgiving, slow down for a couple days and catch my breath, and then get back into it with a brand new podcast this week. And this podcast, I wanted to focus on marketing, and I wanted to talk to somebody who I think does a great job marketing themselves and marketing the right way. Her name is Pam Rosser-Thistle, and Pam is based out of our Rittenhouse Square office at the Harper. And the reason why I wanted to reach out to Pam is, not only is Pam a top producing agent, she's excellent at what she does, but she also has 20 years of marketing experience. I think you'll enjoy what Pam has to say and get some good ideas for your business. So let's get into the ins and outs of marketing with Pam Rosser-Thistle, and we'll talk on the other side. My guest today is Pam Rosser-Thistle. And like I said, she's from our Rittenhouse Square office and at the Harper. And I have to tell you, Pam, first and foremost, I was down at the Harper for a settlement. I think I told you that a couple weeks ago. And that building is beautiful. I had never been in there before, and it is gorgeous inside. So
it really is.
Yes, lucky you.
Love going in. I mean, right now with COVID, you go in just as you need to, but couldn't ask for a better space.
Yeah,
location.
It's really a beautiful place. I was so wowed when I walked in there, and I was like, well, if I sold in the city, I would definitely want to work here. It's really cool. So
it's amazing. Yeah.
So, we touched base a little bit over the phone, and the reason why I wanted to have you on today and the reason why I'm excited to have you is because you made an impression on me years ago that stuck with me to this day. And when I actually started doing the podcast, I actually had an episode with you in mind. I already had that kind of spaced out in my mind because you have a very specific way and a talented way of marketing, and you have a marketing background. I mean, you've been kind of marketing for, I think in your bio, it says, 20 years of marketing experience.
Yeah.
And I think that shows in what you do. So the thing that I was so impressed with is that you and I were at a Breakfast of Champions, and at that time, I had heard your name. I didn't know you, and I'm sure you didn't know me. But during the Breakfast of Champions, you brought like a little goodie bag for everybody. And if I remember correctly, you had like some cookies in there. You had a personalized like note tablet that you gave to people, and a bag filled with stuff. And I was like, oh my God, like it was just so cool. And I just remember thinking like, I have to talk to this person further at some point in time, because I was like so excited to get home and eat my cookies and everything.
Oh,
but it just made such a lasting impression on me. So, we're in the holiday season, and this is why I wanted to have you on specifically. Is there anything specific that you're doing right now for the holidays in terms of marketing to your sphere of influence, or, your current clients or even past clients? How do you reach out this time of year and make an impression like you made on me?
Well, my sphere is my most important. Those are my most important people. My business is based on relationships, which I think is the way a lot of Berkshire agents run their businesses is cultivating relationships and nurturing those relationships and being there for people when they need you, not just about real estate, but in general. So this has been a different year, obviously, with COVID and a lot of the safety guidelines. So many of the things that I've done in the past, I've been doing things a little bit differently this year because in the past I've had client appreciation parties, delivering goodies. 1 year, actually 2 years, I was at a local bakery, and I had people stop in and they would order ahead what they wanted. I had 3 choices, and I had little bags also that had some goodies in there. And it was really just a stop by and chat. And so people would come in, and it was a big block of time. I basically had a good part of my day that I was going to be at this bakery, which is run by a friend of mine. in Society Hill. And so I was just sitting there, and I would talk with people for however long they wanted to talk. So, and I think now with where we are, it's more about listening and talking on the phone and helping people wherever they are right now, because this year is so different. I think people just want someone to talk to, and real estate is often what it's about, but it might be about something else. And I'm there for people for that. So, because people I work with, I get to know them, and I care about them. So, I've backed off a little bit on marketing as far as live activities, just given the situation. But some of the things that I always do, which I continue to do, I send out cards 4 times a year, and they're cards that I make. So it's not just a canned card. I take pictures all the time, ones that I put up on social media, and so I have them in my phone, and I'll look through and pick something out that's seasonal, kind of seasonal. It's not always like a stereotypical holiday picture, but it might have houses in it. It might have Philadelphia scenes. And so I get them printed. I do Snapfish. And then I handwrite messages, and it takes me weeks. It takes a long time. And then for the holidays, I'll put a Starbucks card in there, which is, it's not a big dollar amount, but it's the thought. And in years past, sometimes people would say, "Oh, do you want to meet for coffee?" And it wasn't really about it, like inviting me to meet them for coffee. If they wanted to, that was fine. But it's just a little something to make you happy during these times. Mm-hmm. So I think this year it's small gestures, and it's meeting people where they are, because some people are just going about their life, wearing their masks and going about things. Others are very scared. I think you really have to customize your approach with people right now, because people are more than I've ever seen in different places, and you have to respect that.
I was going to ask you about, this time of year with COVID is such a unique situation. Do you have to dial back at all, in what you do? And obviously, if you're going to have a client appreciation party, certainly it's going to be changed this year,
that wouldn't happen this year.
Yeah. And so, we have agents out there that talk about doing, maybe pop-bys. You leave something at the door. One thing that's popular that I'm hearing now is like the wrapping paper, right? You could leave, or at least out here in the suburbs,
that's
you can,
nice.
Yeah, you can leave wrapping paper at people's doors, or small gifts. But you would mention making a custom card. And I think, the handwritten note, to me, and I'm a huge proponent of this. People who know me know that I send cards all the time. And the month of December, I'm writing notes constantly to people. And I think it just carries such weight this time of year, especially with the pandemic going on, Yeah.
And I paint, I love picking the stamps out, like every detail. I'm kind of like, it's like I'm in kindergarten or something. I have my pens and what color am I going to use? And so because I know that there are services now that write notes for people, and machines that look like handwriting. So I never do that. I mean, that's fine if people do that, but if you get a note for me, it's definitely for me. My network is not so huge that I don't know what people like. So I keep them in mind. Like if something comes up, some of them have helped me when I have a daughter who's in college now, and some of my sphere helped me go through that process because they had kids that were a little bit older. So it's a give and take. So again, it's meeting people where they're comfortable, like whatever their comfort level is. Some people don't want to talk to you. They just want to text, or, they want it all just very systematic. And other people want a lot of talking. So, it could be on the sidewalk, it could be on the telephone, it could be emailing or texting. There are now so many ways to communicate with people that I think that is really the new focus, or the new challenge, is try to figure out how your clients want to interact with you, and don't force your style or what's convenient for you onto them.
Yeah, along those lines, just I don't mean to interrupt, but
No, go ahead.
along those lines, I remember when texting became more and more popular, and I don't want to pigeonhole a generation of people, but when you have millennials start to get into buying houses, I would have clients that would be first time home buyers or younger.
Yeah.
And they would just want to text. And I would get a little frustrated saying, this is really hard to talk about a very specific situation that is kind of complicated over texting.
Yeah.
But that's what they wanted to do. And, to your point, marketing 101, you're trying to fulfill a need that people have, right? It's not about you, it's about what they want. And it certainly seems like you do that very well with your clients in terms of your marketing and reaching out and staying in touch with your people.
Yeah, and things change. With the first lockdown, there were a lot of changes that happened. And so as far as marketing goes, now I feel like for listings, we need to do virtual tours, floor plans, as well as the photos. We do virtual open houses. They were really good in the beginning, and then they died off pretty quickly. When you can do live open houses, the virtuals don't really do too much, but I think it's good to have that ready to go just in case. And it's a good way to walk somebody through a property if you're just, like one-on-one with somebody. So anyway, and then we use QR codes too, which hook back to our websites, for open houses. And we kind of revamped how we do open houses, that take into account the fact that some people are not going to want to come inside. They might just want to get information, but you want to get to the people who are in the neighborhood where the houses are. So, and you can see how many clicks you get from people. And then sometimes they will come in through your website and just contact you later. So that was something new that came out of necessity.
Yeah.
And then you have like normal live open houses too.
Yeah, let me ask you more about the QR code, because I'd like to
love the
know about
QR
that,
code.
because I'll tell you what, when QR codes came out, I was like, this is going to be the next big thing. Everybody's going to be using these. And then it kind of went away because people didn't come up with like a creative way to potentially use them. So explain to me how you're incorporating those QR codes. I know you said you're pushing people back to the website. How are you initially getting those QR codes out to people?
You can put them different places, on your signs, on the door of the property. When people come in, if they don't want to take paper, they could scan it. So really just like the restaurants use them. And it gets them right to your website.
Yeah, I think, and that's fascinating. Like you're making me rethink some of my stuff here, because putting them, like you said, putting a QR code on, say, a front door would be awesome. I think that's a really great idea. And, back to your mentioning of the virtual open houses, we started out doing them during COVID. We didn't know, how they would pan out. And like you said, they were successful in the beginning, and then they kind of started to trail off. I think just me personally, I think they're going to start to come back around again.
I think they will too. Yeah.
So I've seen you on, those virtual tours. I've seen you post stuff on Facebook about your virtual tours. And I want to segue now into social media, because, you were actually voted as a top social media influencer this past year.
Yeah.
And I told you before, I'm like that silent stalker on Facebook. I'm going through my news feed and I always see Pam's stuff coming up, and you are on there a lot. You're always posting something that it will spark a conversation. You have a unique talent for doing that. So is that intentional, or do you kind of just wing it? I mean, is there intention?
I wing it. Oh, I totally wing it. But I'm chatty by nature. And it's like a way of just talking to people because I really want to know. It's not like I know sometimes, like I get the feeling sometimes you'll see the same kind of question up there and I'll think, did somebody in a class tell them to put that up there? And I'm thinking probably yes. But I think about things and I get a lot of advice from my social media people. It's probably, maybe it's not the best, but it's how I've made some like big life decisions and gotten like when I go on a vacation and where do I eat? Like, I really want to know. So I need their help. And I'm curious what people are up to or thinking about. So, it's true. It's not a fake thing where I'm like, oh, what am I going to throw up? It's more like I don't have a filter. I think about it and then I just put it on there. Like all the pictures, I took them probably 5 steps ago. I was walking down the street. Or another thing I do actually, and this is, I guess you would call it a trick, but I take pictures sometimes and then I save them. And I might post them a couple days later if they're just like a general city shot. And there's not really a reason that I do that, but it's more just to keep, I want to keep a rhythm going. For social media, it's good to have a consistent presence. And sometimes people say, oh, what do I put up there? Well, you don't have to be, you can store things. They call it batching. It's like making cookie dough and freezing some of it. And then you roll it out later. So it's that same concept.
That's an awesome analogy. Katie Lance, who is
she's great.
She's awesome. And I've had her on the podcast before, and she talks about viewing your life as a story, right? You have to think of your life as content. And I think you do that very well. I mean, I am guilty where I get in that pattern of I post about business, and then maybe a little personal stuff sprinkled in. But you're the other way around, which I think is a lot more effective, where it's kind of like your life or life in the city, something that has to do with something people would be interested in. And then you sprinkle in the real estate on top of that. And I think that's the way to go,
Yeah. And it's the way my life is. It is all mixed together. Like the houses are they're personal to me. And people say, oh, you probably don't remember our transaction or our house. And I'm thinking, I remember everything about it, but I don't know your name. Do you ever get that? I'm horrible with names, but I remember, I know who they are, but and I remember everything about the transaction and their house and everything, but I'm really bad with names.
It happens, I'm sure they forgive you for it.
No, I figure it out. I'll go through my phone and my emails and I'll put the address in there and I'll get it. But I'm just bad with that.
Yeah. I've gotten stopped at stores before where I'm like, how do I know this person? And they'll be chatting me up. And then I'm like, realize that I sold them a house 10 years ago. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so bad. And then I totally remember, but by that point. That's
just like the mask you said, because it's even worse with the mask.
Oh yeah. It's terrible.
I don't even recognize family members, but like you said, you were at the Harper and I didn't recognize you. Well, that's pretty normal because you had a mask on. And
I was like, hi, Pam. And you were like, oh my God, who is this weirdo?
I don't. So never take it personally. I'm just in my own world a lot of times.
That's all right. So I'm reading a book right now, and it talks about just being a genuine person on social media, right? Because everybody wants to put out this model of perfection about who they are, what they're doing, humble bragging about this and doing that.
Yeah.
And I think you just kind of put it out there the way that it should be done. And I think it does spark a lot of interest, So anyway, so kudos to you.
It's fun.
Yeah. So as far as your marketing, getting back to just the marketing.
Yeah, sure.
you know, from year to year, do you say in your head, you said earlier that you make cards, you send them out like 4 times a year. Do you make a concerted effort to have a marketing plan year over year? Like, do you do the same things every year? Do you try and incorporate new stuff into your marketing? Do you have a plan, or do you just kind of go with the flow?
So my plan, I'm pretty improv, but there's a core to it. So the way I plan is I look at my sales. I like pull them off of Bright, and I just write down where they came from. And for me, it's usually 3 different places, either like Sphere and referrals and open houses. Those are my 3. So, and I have to say, like, the Berkshire network is really good to me. I mean, I give a lot of referrals because I only sell in Philadelphia. So I give a lot of referrals, but then I also get a lot of referrals. So that's a really big part of my business. And then I like open houses to me are like a little party. So I love doing open houses. I love interacting with people. So even if I didn't need that as a business source, I just love to do it. It gives me focus in my week. And for so many reasons, it just keeps me on my toes with my market. So for my business planning, I'll take a look and see, okay, how did it pan out this year? And usually it's about a third. And so, but it could adjust sometimes. And so I beef up what I'm doing to support where the sales are coming from, because that's the what some people don't line up, is they have this idea in their head where things come from, and it's not true. Like, sometimes friends and family is not the spot. It took me about 3 years in real estate to realize that open houses were really good for me. Doing things like mailings, which it feels good to do a mailing, like you accomplish something. But I don't get a whole lot back from that. We were talking about the card mailing. I think that's different, but like just a random like radius mailing or something, that is more just kind of a little fluff. So looking to see what actually works, and then beefing up those areas. And I have systems in place that are very rigid, and I'll adjust them based on like when we get new technology at Berkshire, or only a little bit. I adjusted a little bit. Like I added AdWorks.
Me too.
For my Sphere, not the zip code. I didn't think the zip code worked. So I do it for my Sphere. So that's new. I do the American Lifestyle magazines, which is the most expensive thing I do, but I think it's really good. So I do that to people. I help buy houses in the areas that are a match to where I would like to sell them. And then I really worked very hard on my CRM and my database. And that now has become the number one as far as how I get business. Like, that is just number one. Like, even just today, like I had a couple emails come in from people who were responding to, because I customized all my campaigns, just little check-in emails that, go out automatically. And I was getting like, a whole update, like, oh, I'm, in DC and this has to happen, that has to happen, but let's connect at this time. And so it's great because it keeps me in there, like on the calendar or whatever with them, for people who I may have met at an open house or, whatever. I do a lot of custom campaigns and just checking in. And then it starts a conversation going. And then then it is me. Then I take it from there. So that is probably how my business has changed in the last 2 years, is really putting the focus on the CRM and I have it category. It's almost that part. It's like a robot. Like there's certain times when you have to really be connecting, giving your knowledge and everything. And then there are times when you're just doing data entry and it's like organizing a sock drawer. You just have to tag people the right way. You have to like get it organized the right way. And I'm like, I have it set up so like I have to do that. Like there's no way around it. The way I have notificate, so I'm always organized. Like there's no like, oh, I've got to get my database in order. It's like it has every day it's in order because every day there are a couple things I have to do. So that has been a game changer for me.
I really appreciate that you're saying this, because if you talk to the average agent, I would say 9 out of 10 of them say, I got to get my database in order, right? We hear that all the time, and you covered a lot of bases there. And actually you covered about probably my next 3 questions to you.
Oh, okay.
In that answer, which is great, because this is what I want to talk about with you, because your marketing plan from year to year, you go with what works, is what you said, basically.
And I adjust it. Yeah.
And you identify what works, number one.
Yeah.
Number 2, I love the fact that you said your open houses are a good source of business, because, I tell young agents time and time again, like, where should you start, right? We'll start hosting some open houses for people, try and pick up buyers, try and pick up clients, and host as many as you can. Pre-COVID, would you say that you were trying, how many open houses would you do, say, in a month, do you think?
I do one every week.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One every week. Yeah. But now I'm more, now my business is a little bit more weighted to listings, just a little bit, not too much. But so now when I do open houses, I'm trying to really, really sell that house. And actually I've sold most of my listings at my open houses since COVID. Wow.
That's great.
And it's not like I represent the buyer. I don't like to do dual agency. It's the buyer comes in, they have an agent, I follow up with the agent, and then do it that way. So the open houses are, and then there are a lot of people who are hosting my open houses, and I train them, and I train them how to like use it to build their business. But then they also have to give me the agent names, and so it's like a 2-way street, and it works really well. Like I am so grateful for those agents, because that's how I've sold a lot of my listings, because there's like so many open houses at certain houses that buyers who are like timid to make an appointment, or their agent might be timid to show it to them or something, like they just come into the open house, and they might come like Saturday and Sunday, like look at it again. And then their agent can stop by, and it's not the ideal way, but I'm trying to provide an opportunity and service to the buyer agents, because I want to get the listings sold.
Sure.
So that's a new trend, that it's that the open houses are selling the listings.
Yeah, I mean, and to have a 30-year business potentially coming from open houses, I mean, you're obviously doing something right with open houses, and I think there's a lot to that, the way that you're doing it. So what do you think is the secret success there, or the secret sauce, when someone comes in, beyond just selling it from an open house, but potentially picking up clients, whether it's pre-COVID, post-COVID, whatever, is there a special way that you do things with open houses?
Well, the first thing is you have to get people in the door. So pre-marketing, signs, tapping your network. That's number 1, is get people in the door. And then number 2 is you have to figure out like where they are in the process, or like what, there's like a category for everybody. So like the people maybe rent in the neighborhood, and they're looking to buy. And so you figure out when their lease is up. And so you want to get some general information. Or you might have somebody who's a neighbor, and they own a house. And so that would be a potential seller. And then you might have somebody who's just like I've had people who bought using other agents, but then they refer their friends to me. So like sometimes people give up to like, oh, well, like they or oh, they're not even gonna like buy or know for 2 years. And like my time frame is forever. Like I've had people I've worked with for 5 years, and that's extreme, but like I really could care less how long the time frame is. I'm not looking for somebody to walk in and say, hey, I'm going to buy this house tomorrow. Like it can be whatever works for them. I mean, they have a life. And so I try to serve people where they are. Like if they say, oh, a couple of years from now, I might be buying a house. Well, then I help them figure out how to get to know the process and look at places. And we stay in touch. It's, you know, I couldn't help it if everybody wanted to buy a house like all at the same time. I'm only one person, so I couldn't do that anyway. So I want people spread out. And so anyway, trying to figure out like, you know, what is it that they're looking for and giving them ideas. If they say, oh, I wish this house had parking, then sharing, well, you know, there's some others that have parking. So really knowing the market so you can offer suggestions to them. And then I follow up like the same day, always the same day. And I follow up in a way that is useful to them. Like if they ask me a question, I'll get the answer. So it's not just like a canned follow up. Like it takes me so long to follow up. I mean, it takes me like about 6 hours. It takes me like I'm up late. It's because I do the research and I get them the information. And I share tools, you know, we have different Berkshire tools, and I'll say like, oh, this person might like Real Scout. Let me send that. This person might want to have an idea of the value of their home. Let me do a little poking around. So, you know, I really personalize it. But then I make sure that they are, you know, in follow-up campaigns and like in places that I can continue to reach out to them.
Like a set it and forget it kind of thing.
Yeah.
So along those lines with Fox and Roach tools.
I love the Fox and Roach tools.
So that's what I was going to ask you. What would you say are the top couple of your favorite tools that we have, you know, with the company?
I think Real Scout is the best. People love Real Scout. And there's something about it, they say, that's, I hate to say it, but addictive. But and our marketing consultant, Sarah and I took videos because I do Zoom trainings with her, and I'll take videos of what she's doing so I can go back to it. There's so much more potential that I don't even know about. So there's a lot you can do with Real Scout. I would say that is probably the strongest. And then Ace is great. For contacts, for programs. Trying to think what else there's so many. When I went on my own, I went through all the tools and I did trainings and I watched the videos and I figured out which ones I thought were good for me. Like I'm not into Spacio, but I like it, and I like it for new agents who don't quite know how to follow up yet because it does it all for them. So I encourage new hosts to use Spacio, and a lot of people really like Spacio. So It's not for me because I like to do things very customized.
And I was always, you know, right now I'm finding that a lot of my clients, I think I've mentioned this on previous podcasts, that a lot of my clients reach out to me through Property Snapshot. When they get their Property Snapshot,
that's good.
Get back.
I like that too.
Yeah.
I've been using that.
Yeah.
And then also through my own website, because we all get these free websites that they're really good. And I customized mine. I added some of my own pictures, but like the template was great. You know, there were a couple of options, and Even if you are a new agent and you just like, oh, okay, let's go with the template till I figure it out. It looks really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, even as a placeholder, it works, right? If people looking you up online and they happen to, stumble upon your website, it's great for what we get,
Yeah.
And you just have to make sure that you set it up right and actually use it the way you should, So speaking of the tools and everything involved in set it and forget it, doing the business that you do, it sounds like you work late. You are very much into your clientele. So how is it with your time management? You talked about that you do have some systems that you do a lot of business. So how do you find time to have that kind of special relationship with everybody when there's maybe not enough hours in a day?
I think it's prioritizing, like, what do I need to do, like, that are live tasks. And like, for example, like right before I came on here, I batched it so that I met a carpet guy measuring. And then from there, I went and met a contractor at a listing, like a house that a buyer's thinking about buying to try to get costs for renovation. And then I picked up a gift card. And then I had to pick up a seller's disclosure that someone left in the house for me. So I did all that like within, and my business is geographically really tight. So I'm always just going around in the same circle. So I'm never like more than probably 10 blocks away. So like everything I'm doing, it's like in a little square. And so I have to be up on I know pretty much, but like I know where the loading zones are, and like to get that gift card, I had to I'm like, oh, I got to get into that loading zone. And then with all the streeteries, I was like, oh crap, like that street is all like a streetery. There are no loading zones on that block. So I had to, into another block. So it's a lot of logistics, but I know them by heart. It's like being an athlete. Like you just kind of know how to do it. But there are, especially Center City. I don't know, maybe it's different. Maybe there are other things in the suburbs, but like you kind of have to know the rules of the game. And like, Sundays, the parking signs, it usually says except Sunday. So like if you're going to do an open house for more than 2 hours, it's got to be Sunday, not Saturday, because you get a ticket if it were Saturday. So like they're just all these things that you kind of instinctively learn by selling in a tight market that has weird rules.
That's why I never go into Center City. I'll just tell you.
It's very different. It's very different.
It is. It's definitely very different. You certainly have that expertise of where you are. And so last question I wanted to ask you, if you were a brand new agent starting out today, maybe let's go beyond COVID. Let's take that out of the equation.
Okay.
All right. But if you were starting today, where is the first place that you would start in terms of your marketing? Like what's the first piece that you're going to put out there for marketing?
I think you have to really just get the basics. So a personal website, which you get for free, like take the template. Like because I'm mentoring some agents, so I'm helping them with this. And I said, like, don't get so caught up in making everything perfect in the beginning. Like you have to get the tools that are going to help you sell. So get your website, and even things like, we're not using them so much now, but business cards, understand how to do a transaction, and get through the steps. Like sometimes people get lost in the sizzle, and you really need to know, it's like knowing how to talk. Like you are like learning a language, like you need to learn how to speak before you can sing. You really need to know the nuts and bolts. And I feel like some agents in general are missing that core piece of it with, when you go under agreement and like, the steps that have to happen after you go under agreement. And even just protecting yourself from a legal perspective, like having things documented, using the right forms. It might not be like fascinating. I love paperwork. So like, I don't have an assistant. I don't have, like, people are like, oh, do you have a team? Do you have this? Do you have that? Like, no, it's me. Like everything, it's me. I do everything. But like, oh, but like, wouldn't you want an assistant to do that? I'm like, don't take that joy away from me. I love doing administrative.
You're an exception to the rule, that's for sure.
I love doing administrative stuff. Like I like it. It's so satisfying.
Oh God.
So, and I have like my way of doing it, and I have a lot of the tech, like kind of doing it on it. It's not like I have little shortcuts. So, and then when you're selling the same houses or type of houses over and over again, it becomes very systematic. So, but anyway, back to like what an agent should do is like, you've got to get that core knowledge so that when you get your first client or your first listing, you know what to do. So knowing what your resources are, and, you know, and then putting yourself out there to your network. But I think that doing the basics, but then also identifying your network, your friends and family in the beginning, and then just keep working to expand that through open houses, through referrals, through, you know, whatever it is, and have systems in place that, so like if I have an email address, somebody new, it takes me about half an hour to put it in all the places where it needs to be.
Yeah.
Because like if that person contacts me, I want to have them as like a contact in my phone. I want to have them in my CRM and tagged properly. I want to have them as a contact in Bright so that if a house comes up that I think they might be interested in, they're already in there and I can just send it to them. I want to put them in all these places because what that does is it makes it easier to stay connected to them because you're not fumbling for like, oh, where do I find their information or something on Real Scout? Like, you know, they can get it that way. So anyway, you want to get all those systems in place. Mm-hmm. And then you feel confident that you can just kind of, you know, you're just, you know what to do.
Yeah. And I had a new client, I got a referral the other night, and just to your point, like I worked for like probably, close to an hour setting them up on a Real Scout search.
Yeah.
And putting them right into my phone. You would not believe how for years, I would always put their phone number in my phone without their email address. And you're always fumbling around for their email address. And finally, I started putting all the information in the right place, getting them, into your CRM. I send them the HomeSnap app. I invite them to HomeSnap. I mean, all these little things make a huge difference. So I totally agree with you. I'm sure I'll be talking to you in the future, and hopefully I will see you again at Breakfast of Champions one of these years because I want some more cookies. Yeah. I want to be able to eat them,
I know. Good. Well, this is great.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Have a happy holiday.
You too. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
That was the interview with Pam Rosser-Thistle, and I thank Pam for her time. She was great to talk to, and the thing that stood out to me with Pam is that she is just a genuine person. And I think when it comes to her relationships with her clients and her marketing, it comes from a genuine place. Like Pam doesn't put stuff out there, number one, that doesn't work for her. It doesn't speak for her. Sometimes I think that you have to coalesce around who you are as an agent and then do your best to just be genuine to people out there, and that attracts people to you. And I can sense that with Pam, that her people are attracted to her because she is who she is. She doesn't try to fake it and be something that she's not, number one. Number two, I think a really important thing that she mentioned was, some people, some agents want to fit a square peg into a round hole, right? Like they want to try things marketing wise where they insist that they have to do this or they have to try this, and they don't keep track of what works and what doesn't, right? And sometimes they want something to work so much that they just keep perpetually doing it without much of a return. So I think number two, you have to assess your business and know what works and what doesn't work for you. And that could be different things for different people. Pam mentioned that she does open houses, outside of COVID, she was doing them at least once a week. And so if that works for you, then by all means, do as many open houses as you can. If a mailer works for you and mailers work consistently in the way that you do them, then by all means do mailers. But you have to figure out what works and then attack that strategy. And I think that was another big takeaway that I had with Pam. The last thing I'll say is that try to have a skeleton, at least a skeleton strategy of what you want to do marketing wise for the year. Just like a business plan, you should also have a marketing plan. What do you want to work on? Pam had mentioned that she makes basically homemade cards for her clients quarterly and then sends them out. And she takes a lot of pride in what she does. She talks about, down to the colors that she chooses for these cards and pens and all that stuff. So she takes great pride in that. I think that when you send those out to your clients, they see that, a lot of time and effort went into making that special for them. And so a lot of times I think as agents, we kind of try and do the path of least resistance, right? And we don't get much out of it. Whereas if we show that effort and people perceive that we put in that effort, that pays us back tenfold for the future. That's it for this week's podcast. We'll be back in another couple of weeks with a new topic, a new guest. And as always, if you want to hear something in particular or a topic that we haven't covered yet, reach out to me at jason.ostrowski@foxroach.com. Until then, stay safe out there, stay selling, and I'll catch you next time on the Everything Real Estate Podcast.